Hello, we are back. What a great opening session, but the next one is very special too. We have Wendy Dailey talking about a new experience in candidate experience. Wendy Dailey is, a HR professional, is a HR podcaster, HR blogger. She probably has the most famous podcast, HR Social Hour, across the world, very international. Wendy, how are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I'm so excited to be here today with you, Fran.
Me too, me too. Wow, so thrilled to have
Yeah.
you here. I think your topic is pretty interesting and very appropriate for these times. I'm looking forward to hearing you. I don't want to take your time. You have 40 minutes. It's your time.
All right. Well, I will. Let's do the technical piece and share my screen so you guys can see the presentation here. So apologize. This is always fun. This is the fun part of the virtual experience, right? All right, so excited to be here with you guys today, and very very excited to be chatting, sharing this topic with you. This is something that's pretty near and dear to my heart. I have been recruiting for a long time, and actually came to realize that recruiting through my third recession. So there's a lot of things that we've done in the past, a lot of learning that I really just want to share and pass on to everyone here. And some of the tips that we're going to talk about today and share today will really give you an idea of some things you can do right now, and maybe some things to look at in the future, because some things will be a little bit harder to do right away. But there's a lot of moving pieces to this. But like I said, there's been some chatter on the Twitter webs and about candidate experience and some of the things that I'm going to talk about. But I really think that candidate experience starts much earlier than we believe. Candidate experience starts even before they decide to apply, before they click on that career link. They are watching you. They are looking at you. Your entire marketing experience, it can drive candidates to you, to become to become your employees, and you want them to believe in you as an organization, and you want them to believe in you as as someone that they, or an organization, excuse me, that they want to be a part of and that they want to help grow. So I think there's a lot of great things that we can do, and so we'll jump in. First thing I want to talk about, though, is the candidates. Now, here in the United States, the average job tenure is about 4.2 years. Stat's a little bit old from 2018, but I think, it kind of gives you an idea. The interesting part of this, though, is that it's typically the most jobs people are going to have. They're going to, quote, be a job hopper before age 25. That's when you're really going to get into that. A lot of different jobs after 25 is when they slow down the job hunting. It's when they are not, they're going to get settled. They're going to stay with you for a while. So you're not going to see as much movement after that. So, think about that. So before they're 25, when they're young, they're probably teenagers, brand new into the workforce. That's when they're doing the most looking for jobs. And then once they become mature, they stop. They will stay much longer in organizations. And this phrase, that job hopper phrase, is one that I hate. I hate it because it scares people. People will start thinking that they have to stay in a crappy job because they don't want to be seen as a job hopper. They don't want that to be counted against them. And so I think we need to look at that a little bit differently. But all of that is to say, most people are not experts in job hunting. It's not what they do. And those of us in human resources, we're a little bit better at it, but let's be honest, we're not always that good at it on our own. But we do expect candidates to be experts at this. we expect them to have flawless resumes and applications. And I'm going to be sharing some truths here about my own experience and about some of the stuff that I've done. Excuse me. But I can remember coming into work after a weekend, and I have some entry-level positions open, and I'm coming into 50 applications. Well, I got to come up with some way to weed through those, because we can't do 50 interviews. You can't. As much as we would like to, we can't. So we're using that flawless resumes, those flawless applications, no typos. Oh, well, you have some typos in there, so I'm going to move on. Maybe you misused a phrase, or the worst one, and so many people have done it, but you address your cover letter to the wrong person. But that too, we expect people to be able to articulate in their cover letter exactly what we want to see. They're supposed to be mind readers as well. And give us this great resume and this great cover letter that tells us exactly what we need to know. And we're expecting it because there's a huge industry out there of helping people job hunt. There are resume writers, there are cover letter writers, there are people that will help you do your LinkedIn profile. It is an industry, and it's not going away as long as we keep following through this process. We also expect candidates to understand all of the different things that we're going to do to get them through from application to interview to hire. We expect them to just know. We do not share that information very well. We don't put it out there so that people can understand it. We don't include it in our email follow-ups. We just expect that they'll understand. And here in the Midwest, no news is good news is the big lie, right? Because that's how people get ghosted. That's how candidates get frustrated with us. And again, we expect them to understand our very generic, very template focused letters that we are doing just to say, hey, thanks, but no thanks. We give so little feedback when it comes to this process. And there's so much technology out there that would allow us to be better at this. There's so much out there that we should be able to do a little bit more, help them out a little bit more on that. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do to help out with that. And we're going to talk through some of those things today. Because it's on us. It is on us, human resources. It is on us, recruiters, to improve this for the candidates, to improve it for ourselves. We do spend a lot of time on process and compliance. We tend to, we do. We want an fair and equitable process. We want people to be considered. We want people to find the right job. We want them to be in the right fit. But unfortunately, when we spend that time on compliance, we spend that time on process, we only focus on those pieces. We aren't looking at the overall flow of the process. We aren't looking at it from the candidate side and from the recruiter side. One of my big pet peeves with applicant tracking systems is they're either really great for the candidate or they're really great for the recruiter. There's not a lot of crossover in that, at least in the ones that I've used and the ones that I've seen. It's pretty rare to find a tracking system that can help you do both sides of that. The other thing is, the overall application process, selection process hasn't really changed from the days of the old help wanted sign and moving people through your process. So we have a job posting in some way, shape, or form. We see the resume or an application, and then we do an interview. That has been the process. And typically when we get into process improvement, we are only going to focus on faster and not necessarily on better. So we need to get better at our process improvement, going into it a little bit deeper, diving in to see what's going on with our process. What steps are causing hiccups? What steps are roadblocks? And how can we make it better? How can we make this a give and take process rather than We put the job posting out, they send in a resume, and then we do the interview. I think we could create a better back and forth process to help us get to know the candidates a little bit better, help the candidates get to know us a little bit better, and really get into the meat of that process improvement so that we're not just putting a bad process and making it faster. Because that's been my experience with process improvement. We put what we're doing on paper, we put it online, and hey, we improved our time to fill, kinda. Because those are those are the metrics that we look at. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But there's one thing I think that we can do that is really going to help us improve the overall process for candidate experience. And honestly, it's to be transparent. Now, I know you're all sick of that word. I know that this is that word that we hear and talk about and go through, and we're over it. We're over the buzzword of the day. But this is truth. And I think I really honestly feel that that COVID, the pandemic, the recession, everything is pointing to us being more transparent about what's going on in the selection process. There's been a lot of leaders here in the US anyway, who have really been transparent about what's going on. The CEO of Marriott went out early in the pandemic and put out a public video to his entire organization talking about what they were doing and how they were protecting each other and what was going on. And it really kind of elevates what they're doing. It elevates them to me as an employer because they're able to be out there transparent, vulnerable in what's going on, and saying, we don't know, but here's where we're going, here's the direction we're going. And so we can take some of those lessons and put them into excuse me, and we can put them into our applicant process here. So first thing we can do is transparency in our job postings. Oh golly, guys, job posting, typically what I see, and I see it out there, I'm out there looking because we're trying to be better, we're trying to improve, but 9 times out of 10 your job posting is just the job description. And who writes a job description? Probably somebody in compliance, maybe somebody in comp. Typically not going to be your recruiter, which is fine. That's not what you're doing. You're not there to write a job description, but you are there to write a job posting. Now, the job description is going to include those general job duties and qualifications. Sometimes you'll see a culture statement. It might be at the top, it might be at the bottom, it might be somewhere in there. But what we see is either a boring job description or those corny job descriptions. We've all seen those. We make fun of them on Twitter all the time. The people, they're using all the buzzwords, looking for a superstar, looking for a ninja, looking for a rock star. We can do better. We can do better. And I think we can provide some better transparency in our job postings to help people really understand what we're looking for. That way we get the right people. So taking a little bit of time is really going to help get the right people there. So let's give them a true job preview. Share some photos. Can you do video or even audio? Even consider a 3 to 5 minute podcast interview with someone who's actually doing that job right now. Putting that audio file in there so that somebody could listen to it while they're reading through your posting. Make it quick, make it easy, but give them a real preview of what to expect in this job. And that's going to help them really help you get to the meat of what you're looking for. It's going to help your candidate understand what you're looking for and help them self-select. The idea here is not necessarily to get more candidates. It's really to get the right candidates. So that you're not spending time going through 50 people who aren't qualified or don't really want this job, but they want their foot in the door. They're just trying to get something. They're trying to get somebody to respond to them. That's not a good experience. So let's help them see what a true job, what this job is really going to be about. Talk to experts who know how to turn your job description into a job posting. There are some folks out there. I'll give a shout out to Katrina Kibben. She does a fantastic job with this. And she even helps you train people to do it in your organization. But we really have to get away from just posting that dry ingredient list. So I think back to a talk I heard a while ago, and they were comparing job postings to regular marketing. So let's consider Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is selling you an experience, right? They're not just selling you a soda or a pop. They are selling you an experience of what drinking Coke is going to mean to you. So they are showing bright, happy people. They maybe have some music underneath it. And they talk about how Coca-Cola is going to make you feel. Whether that's true or not is a different story. Very rarely are you going to read the ingredient list in Coke. You know what you're getting when you get Coca-Cola, because you're not looking for high fructose corn syrup or caramel coloring. You are looking for a pop that's going to be refreshing and cooling, and maybe make you feel a little bit better when you get that sugar/caffeine rush. Imagine if Coca-Cola advertised the way we advertise for jobs, and had that list of high fructose corn syrup and carbonation and water, caramel coloring. That's not going to sell anybody in getting a Coca-Cola. It's just not. So we need to think a little bit like marketers. We need to think about, how do we want to get these people into our organization, and how are they going to feel when they come here, and how are they going to feel doing that job? Looking at, I work in healthcare, and if we could give true job previews for some of those, like a certified nursing assistant, or a respiratory therapist, and what's it like in the day-to-day, and get people earlier so that they understand before they even go to school what that job is going to be about. They're really going to buy into it, and they're going to understand and remember that you were the ones that told them about that. So I think there's a few things we can do to make our job postings better and help people pick us and pick the right job, because that's what we want them to do. Second one, transparency in salary. I'll be honest, this is the topic that brought me down this road. There was a Twitter feed a while ago where we had a recruiter complaining that they had to disqualify somebody because they just asked about money too early in the process. They need to stop caring about money so much. Newsflash: every single person that works for you cares about money. They care about the salary. And if they don't, they are lying to you. They are. We are not doing this as volunteers. You are not looking for a team of volunteers. You are looking for employees. So let's focus on that. Let's be honest up front. Here, this meme, which I love Dodgeball, the movie. But seriously, I've heard people complain that, well, they need to come back to me because I have this very specific process in mind of how we negotiate salary. And if they come back right after they receive the offer, goodness, people, back it all the way up and start talking about salary from that very first phone call or in your job posting. But we'll get to that in a second. We need to stop being used car salesmen. Truth moment here again. I've done it. I have played that game where I have a position and I know we're going to have to negotiate. I know we're going to get into that. So I go to my hiring manager, I get the range that they're willing to offer, and then I take that back to the candidate and say, hey, we're going to offer you this lower end. They counter, say, let me go talk to my manager, hang up the phone, go do something else. Half hour later, call them, say, hey, talk to the manager. Here's what we can do. Right? We are not used car salesmen. We're not selling somebody a car. We are selling somebody a job. We are getting someone to come in and do a job with us. And we need to pay them for that. The law says we have to pay them for that because we're not looking for volunteers. So let's talk about how some of this transparency. First thing I want you to do, I want you to really seriously consider, if you're not doing it already, sharing some form of salary on your job postings. You do not have to share your full range, because that's the thing I hear from a lot of people. Well, if I share the range, they're going to want the maximum. Right. What's the problem with that? Shouldn't you want someone who thinks they're worth the most instead of someone that thinks they're worth the least? You want, so be realistic about it. If you have a wide pay range, but most of your people are in a smaller bucket, share that bucket. You can update it, you can change it, but be realistic about it and be upfront with candidates when you start talking with them. Share it throughout the process. They won't necessarily know, they might forget, they might be interviewing other places. That's okay. They can consider other jobs. But share that with them throughout the process. Even if you get someone who in the beginning is like, I don't know if I really want to share it, that's okay. Let me share where we are. Here's what we're thinking. This is the range that we're likely looking at. You don't have to make them any promises, but be realistic with them. And here's what we're looking at. Can you live with that range? You don't have to say, you don't have to say yes. You could just say, maybe I want to continue with the process. As they go through the process, maybe their needs will change. Maybe their expectations will change for whatever reason. That's on them. But if you're upfront from the very beginning, you are going to get the right candidates in there. There is nothing worse, and many recruiters, again, truth moment, back in the day, I was hiring for a pretty high up position at a hospital, and I was under orders, don't talk about salary. But I kind of probed a little bit, where are you at? Candidate wouldn't tell me. Fine. We spent a month in the interview process. A month. Numerous phone interviews. We brought them in for 3 days. 3 days of interviews. Can you imagine the cost of that? Because we had to get them in and out with all sorts of bigwigs. Get to the final. We want to offer him, extend an offer. He wanted $20,000 more. There's no way we could go up that high. That just wasn't in our budget. If we had had that conversation at the beginning of the process, maybe we could have gone up higher. I don't know. But we would not have spent an entire month in just the interview process. Just the interview process. What a waste of time. Huge waste of time. On that same mind, we really need to have some consistency in our organization on how you have those conversations and when you have those conversations. So highly recommend training your talent acquisition staff, training your hiring managers to have those conversations. Hiring managers love to point things back at HR. We all know that. So get them on board at the very beginning. They know what their budget is. You don't. As a recruiter, chances are you don't know what the budget is, especially in a larger organization. But make sure you guys know what range you're looking at, and allow the hiring manager to have that conversation. Make sure they know what you've shared so that they can say the same thing when the hiring manager or when the candidate comes in to interview. There's nothing worse than your HR staff and your hiring manager not being on the same page with those things, because candidates know. They know that we do this. They know that this is a thing in the past. And so we want to make sure we don't want them to try and play us against each other, right? Oh, well, hiring manager told me this. Oh, well, HR told me that. We have to stop those games. We're all on the same side. Recruitment is not a game. I think I said this on Facebook or LinkedIn, somebody's post. I'm like, this is not a game to be won. We're not a video game. It's not Fortnite. It's not something that you have to win in the end. We're all on the same side, and we're all trying to get the same thing. We're trying to get the right candidate in the right spot. So it just takes a little bit of time and having those conversations, getting everyone on the same page so we can stop competing. All right, so we have talked about transparency in the job posting. And so, just have some of that realistic stuff, realistic job preview, better information there. We just talked about transparency in salary. Again, having those conversations early and often. It's going to get you the right person. And that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for something bigger, better, post the job that you're looking for. If somebody great happens to come along, that's fine. Maybe have a different conversation with them, pull them out of that job posting, but please don't change a job posting because you found a superstar and now you need to make it a senior level rather than a junior level, because you're not advertising correctly. No one put that one out there. All right. Transparency in the application. And this is that, it used to be a piece of paper. For those of us who remember when you used to have to write out a sheet of paper, my oldest daughter just got a job and they had a paper application that she had to fill out. And it was like, wow, blast from the past. Well, here, let me help you fill this out, honey. A lot of times, though, those job applications are hidden on your website, right? There's a lot of clicks. Maybe that's all the way at the bottom. Maybe I have to figure out, okay, is this under About Us? Where would you have it? We're making people kind of try to figure out how we think. I think this is everybody's biggest pet peeve when you're asked to upload a resume or connect to LinkedIn, and then they still have to fill out the application. Oh, painful, right? I personally have given up. I have given up on those and tossed myself out. Said nope, not interested. And then a lot of times, and this is something that's new. Not a lot of people are doing this out there, but our application is filled with information that's not really needed right at the very beginning when we ask them to fill it out. And some of that information leads to bias. Going like super recent here, Wells Fargo recently made a comment, their CEO recently made a comment that there just aren't Black people out in the candidate pool, which we all know is a lie. We know that is a lie. But if you keep looking at the same schools, if you keep looking in the same candidate pools, that's where that comes into bias. And that's why on your application, if you're asking for education information, and that's a different issue altogether, how much that means. But if you keep going to the same colleges and you are screening people out based on what college they went to, well, is that really needed at the very beginning? Maybe you just need to know, do they have a master's? Do they have a bachelor's? But again, you might argue too, my bachelor's degree from 1993, is that still relevant to what I'm doing? Maybe, maybe not. Kind of might depend on what we're doing there. So just a few things to think about. So as we go into that transparency and application, one, make it easy to find. One click. If you can do one, maybe two, not a fan of that, but one click to get to your application, or at least your job search. You want to make it easy to complete. I can remember completing an application. It took me 20 minutes. And at that point, I was like, no, I'm done, because I don't know how much more is left. So provide some of that guidance on what information is needed to complete the application so that the candidate can be prepared right from the get-go and they know exactly what you're looking for and can get that in there. Ask for information as it's needed and as it's relevant. Think about it. Let's blow the process up a little bit, folks. Do you really need that application first? Do you? I want to point out, so if you go to Nike Jobs, they have, I call it the Disney Princess Quiz, where you're going to answer a few questions and then we're going to tell you what Disney princess you are. They take it to answer a few questions and they're fun. They're pictures with a little bit of idea of what they're looking for. You click on a bunch of them as you go through, and then they give you a list of jobs that you might be interested in. So in some of my research, I was going through it. They gave me a list of jobs I would not have considered. I wouldn't have considered because I do talent acquisition. I do HR. So I'm only going to look at HR positions. But they brought up internal communications. They brought up HRIS. They brought up even marketing. I'm like, oh, I guess, yeah, maybe I could do marketing. But they're helping me find the job that I'm looking for. And so how much can we take that to the next level and get into some of the skill assessment when they select the job they're interested in? Not knockout questions. I'm not a fan of those because you can figure out how to answer those. But helping them see, kind of get through maybe something 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. Again, if you're transparent and you tell them what to expect, I'd go, if I knew something was going to take me about 10 minutes, be like, okay, I can give you 10 minutes to this. But if I don't know how long it's going to take, after 5 minutes in, I might be, this is not worth it. So as long as you're transparent and telling people what to expect, they're going to be on board with you. They really are. At least the ones you want. But can we take that to the next level and start with that skill assessment before we even see the application and make sure that they're a skill match? I think we need to start focusing on skills when we're looking at these jobs. I go back to, I used to hire high volume positions where I would seriously see 50 to 100 applications after a weekend. And during a recession, you're going to see even more because people are flooding the market with jobs or with their resumes. But there's still a lot of jobs open. So we're not meshing there. So we need to help people find those right jobs. All right, so we have talked about transparency in the job posting, making sure we're clear and concise in what we're looking for. Transparency in the salary, having those conversations early and often with candidates so that they know exactly what to expect. And then we just covered transparency in application, transparency in what to expect when they fill it out, and transparency in how to get to it. Make that easy. All right, finally, our last thing we're going to talk about is transparency in our process. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we expect candidates to just be able to know. And every single employer has a slightly different process. Again, the high level, job posting, resume, interview, that's going to be the same. But it's those little pieces in between that are completely different. People don't know what to expect. How long should it take to hear from you? How long is it going to take from when you review my resume to when you give me an offer? Do you do you review all applications at once, or do you review them as they come in? We all do that slightly different. So it's confusing. It's long, and it can change based on industry. Candidates and recruiters are ghosting each other now. So recruiters, we're getting our comeuppance here. We've been ghosting candidates for decades. And now they're fighting back. But it happens, and we need to be aware that it is something. But the more transparent we can be in our process, the less likely that that's going to happen. A lot of folks are confused about exactly what you're looking for. And then there's also some uncertainty in who is actually accountable for the process, who is accountable to ensure the process keeps moving. I'm sure there's a lot of finger pointing both directions on that. So, one, publicly share your screening expectations. Put it in the emails that you send back to candidates that say, hey, we've received your application. Put it on your job page to say, hey, here's what you can expect as a candidate. There are some people doing that. Amazon has done it, I believe. And then I saw another one recently. I think it was Starbucks. Had it out there just saying, here's what you can expect if you apply for a job with us. Help people understand that so that they know what to expect. So that, if you submit an application, you can let them know in that email, hey, thanks a lot. We're going to be reviewing your application, and you might not hear from us for about 2 weeks. Those are really easy things for us to put into those automatic emails that can help the candidate understand. So if you know it's going to take 2 weeks to get to that next step, you can put that in the email, and they're not going to call you in 2 days to make sure you got their application. Hold hiring managers accountable to their part. Aha, yeah, this is a fun one, right? I'm still waiting on the hiring manager. I'm still waiting on the hiring manager. Well, who's responsible to the hiring manager? Who's the person that's supposed to tell them, hey, you need to get this back to me? And are we training them? I don't know how many times I've worked somewhere. I've come in and I've been told there's this great training process. But then when I talk to the hiring manager, they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I'm supposed to do what? I've never been trained on that. Know who's responsible for different things. Know who's training the hiring managers in getting into your ATS. Who's training the hiring managers on what you want as far as feedback, getting that to the candidates. Train your staff on how to review, to do that, and train your hiring managers on how to do that. Too often, guys, we say, or excuse me, too often, y'all, we will just go in and say, just give me some feedback. But we don't train them on how to give feedback. We don't train them in what we are looking for. Use your ATS to your advantage. There's probably ways in that system to add drop downs, to add options, so the hiring manager can give you some decent feedback that allows you to give some good feedback to your candidates so that they can move on. Timely feedback too. We don't want them hanging out there forever and ever and ever. I remember once I sent a job is filled letter to some candidates that had been sitting out there for 6 months. I don't like doing that, but I felt the need to give them something. So we need to be a little more transparent in what we're doing and how we're doing that. And then finally, I have here trained staff on how to review candidates for skills so that they can give good feedback and tell somebody why they weren't selected. Now, I get it. Sometimes you have 2 really great candidates and you don't have good feedback to give. Tell them that. Tell them, hey, we had 2 really great candidates. Unfortunately, we went with the other one. We'd love to see you again, and help them understand how that actually works. Don't say we keep your resume on file, because we all know what that means. Unless you have a fantastic ATS that's going to be able to get you in and out of there, it's going to suck, and you're never going to see them again. They're going to go into that black hole. All right, transparency is key. We have 4 things that I want you guys to consider as far as being transparent. Focus on that job preview, that job posting. Make sure that it is giving a clear indication of what to expect in that job, clear that they understand it. Figure out different ways, figure out new ways. What's nobody doing? I just gave you 2, I gave you some ideas, put a video out there, do an audio, a short podcast with workers. Transparent pay information. Be sure you're sharing good pay information upfront and often, so that your candidates can continue to make that decision that they do fit with where you want to pay them. A transparent application. Again, that is one that is easy to find, easy to complete, and people know exactly what to expect. And your transparent process. I go back to that. If people know what to expect, once they complete that application, you are providing regular updates to them so that they can jive and flow with you as far as that process. Again, I think this can be a better, more give and take process as far as the employee experience. Yeah, so thank you guys. I think we're going to jump into questions now. I will stop sharing my screen so that we can get into that. I kept it nice and short there. But I'm really super excited to jump into your guys' questions. This is my favorite part of it, where we can have that give and take. I am just sitting here talking at you. I don't like that.
Wendy, I love this approach. I was taking notes like a crazy man. We have clear that transparency is the key for sure. To the company or organizations, and for applicants or people who are hunting for a job. But I want to highlight some notes. Recruitment is not a game, right?
It's not.
It's not a game. It's not a game. And that is incredible. I absolutely, adamantly agree with that. We need to, yeah.
Sorry, I was going to jump in there. One of the things that I see a lot, especially on Twitter and recruitment advice, is how do I beat the ATS? How do I beat it? How do I get my application through? Again, we have to stop pretending. We have to stop playing this game.
We should be more honest, I think, and more transparent at the end. We should have morning conversation more often and more with more transparency.
Yeah.
Don't put your info in your resume that is not required in order to be more accurate. This can drive bias, and bias, as you probably guess, is one of the things that we try to avoid in recruitment, in recruiting processes. We need more objectivity. We can talk about an empathetic recruitment process.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you are thinking on people, you are caring on people. When you post a job and something like that, you are more empathetic. Okay, go ahead, because I can talk many things. Go ahead with the first question. You talk about different job posting messages and strategies. Has the particular impact on these features on experience, performance, quality of the hires being measured? If not, do you think should be done?
Yeah. I don't think it is right now because there's not a lot of people that are doing a lot of that. We're still seeing the old job postings where it's just the ingredient list, I'm calling it. But so that's what we see, and so I think as we get more people going that way, um, more people doing those actual real job previews, I think that's what people want. I personally, as a recruiter, I want to get away from seeing 50 applications. So getting people a good idea of what to expect, I think, is key. The other thing too, there's not a lot of people that are doing that, so we really need to help build that a little bit more. So once we see more of it, I think we'll see more measurement in it. So hopefully it will be. Sorry, people are going in and out of my house, so I'm getting
No, no, sorry,
slightly
no worries,
distracted there.
no worries.
But I'm hoping that soon I will be able to share that I'm putting actual like podcasts in some of our job postings sometime next year with some of those real job previews so that people can get a snippet of, oh, what is it like to be an RN in Fargo, North Dakota in the ICU.
Yeah.
Then we can start measuring that.
Awesome. The second one is, how can we convince HR managers or recruiters to be transparent about salary, job posting application? Beyond transparency, how can we reduce recruiters' biases?
Uh, wow.
Complex.
Yeah, complex question. I think one thing too, as we are more transparent, as we are more upfront with what skills are we looking for, how are we deciphering those skills that people have that we need for these jobs, we are going to get better applicants, and I think we're going to get more. We'll get away from some of those biases if we're looking just at skill set up front. And I get that there's a lot of bias in AI. I understand that. Kind of, and people lie. We get that. But if we can focus on the skills, if we can find a good way to get an idea of what somebody's skill set is that they're bringing in today, maybe get some of that behavioral economics. How do they behave? How do they think? How do we, those SAT questions? If this is this, then this is this, to get an idea of their abilities.
Yeah.
And then we're looking at a smaller pool of people that we're asking to even fill out an application or submit a resume, because we know that you have this skill set, not because you put it on your resume, not because you hit keywords in the application so that you could beat the application. We know you have these skills, and now we're going to seriously consider you for this. So now we want you to fill out the application. Now we want you to take that 20-minute time frame and give us this information, give us your background. So then I'm not concerned, you went to SDSU, South Dakota State University versus the University of Minnesota versus Harvard versus whatever we're looking for. That just diversifies our pool right there. And it's not just people that are looking for, Harvard or Ivy League graduates. I see it in South Dakota where someone from a South Dakota school is given preference over someone from out of state because they might not stay. So we have those biases in that we're not allowing people to go through. Oh, you went to school on the East Coast, you're probably not going to stay. So we're not going to consider you. We put that bias right into it, and we may know nothing else about them. So I think, getting rid of some of that information first. And this is something new. Nobody's doing it. Nobody is doing where we're going to assess your skills first. But I think that's going to be one of those ways to get the bias out of that initial screening.
Absolutely agree with you, Wendy. This is so complex, but we need to find the balance between blind resumes or something like that, and subjectivity when I know someone who is applying to the job, this kind of things. Yeah. Let's go. We have a question from Ben, probably guess Ben Gibbons. Wendy, is there such a thing as being too transparent?
Oh, well, probably. I don't know that we should worry about that right now, though, because we're being so secretive. We are holding so many cards back, and we're having this conversation where I currently work, was we're talking about sharing salary information in job postings. Now, bravo to the state of Colorado, which is requiring that as of January 1st. You have to have some sort of salary information in your postings. So we're starting to have those conversations. And our compensation department has said, well, we're if we give that, we're giving away all our cards. We're giving away our all of our negotiation power. But are we? Are we? If we give them that information up front, and we're going to get the right candidates, we're going to get people who are in that salary pool, or make the decision to say, I'm interested in this job and I would do it for that salary range. I would do it for something within that. The more upfront we are on it, the better we are. As far as too transparent, obviously you don't want to air all your dirty laundry. But there's being arguments to doing some of that upfront as well. PH Creative, Brian Adams, and Charlotte, I'm not going to remember her name, but I'll share a link to their book. They argue about sharing some of that dirty laundry and letting people understand that this is maybe the thing that people don't really like about our job. These are some of the hard things about working here. So if I were to do that for my current employer, it's like, if you want to come be a recruiter for us, fantastic. But you know what? You're going to have 100 open requisitions at one time that you're going to have to staff for. And you're going to be working with hiring managers that are demanding and want to see, we're going to put that out there. And if you like that fast pace, you like a lot of requisitions, you like talking to a lot of people, you're going to love it at our place. You're going to love it. But if you like that more touchy-feely and you want to have really great time to build a strong relationship with every single candidate you come across, you're not going to be a good match for us. And that's okay. So I think there's more transparency that we're not doing that we need to do before we get to that line of, hey, you don't need to share that. You don't need to share that story. You don't need to air the fist fights or those types of things. But I think we can go a lot further in being transparent in these job postings and job opportunities than we are.
Nice. Ajis asked how organizations can ensure the transparent process when orgs assign agencies for hiring.
Oh yeah, if you're going to work with an outside agency, you got to get them on board too. So they follow a lot of the same rules and regulations that the employers have to. They probably have a little bit more freedom because they are outside of the organization, but they still have to follow that. But if you're going to work with an outside agency, I would make sure you have a strong relationship with them, that you build that, and they know exactly what you're looking for. They know how you like to fill positions. They know what you want to share and how to share that, so that you have that consistent message. I think that's where we get jammed up with using agencies and again, kind of like I said, we do it with hiring managers and recruiters. If we're not all on the same page, we're not going to have a good experience. And so you don't want your agency folks telling them one thing, your internal staff telling them something else, and then a hiring manager saying something completely different. So you need to make sure that you have a strong relationship with them and that you have a consistent message. And that's the key with transparency too, is that everyone knows what and how to deliver that message.
Pretty cool. LB Talent Solutions, Yorus, partner, I think.
Yeah.
How have you convinced traditional risk-averse executives to agree to allowing pretty transparency?
Oh, that's the hard one. Salary transparency is hard. I got subtweeted on this topic because I called out a new recruiter. This was a new recruiter on Twitter that was complaining about somebody asking about salary too early in the process, which I started comparing to dating. When should you have that first kiss during dating? Well, everyone has a different idea of how many dates before X, Y, or Z. Same thing without talking about salary. We have our own idea. When is it too early to have that conversation? My advice is we need to have those conversations early. We need to have them often, and we do have those risk adverse executives that are like, please, no, we're going to lose out on that great candidate. I know a lot of recruiters who have that story of, well, if I had posted the salary range, Fran wouldn't have applied for it, and he was a rock star, and we were able to convince people to go above and beyond for the salary to get him what he wanted. Well, that's great, but then you weren't actually hiring for what you hired for, were you? That's not what you had posted. So we need to be honest in what we're looking for. Sometimes, yeah, maybe you can. And if you're in a smaller organization, maybe you can't, you have that flexibility to do that. That's fine. Then don't put it in your job posting, but have that conversation early. But unfortunately, it's going to take laws to change to get people to start posting it. It just is, at least in the US. Colorado's first. They're doing it. They're the only ones right now that are requiring you to put salary information in the posting. Other states have laws where you have to provide it if it's requested. My frame of mind at this point, if they're submitting an application, they're interested, and we need to give them that information.
Yeah, I think we should sell our projects, our organization as a good place for working, instead of only salary range.
And that's the thing. We need to be. It's the whole package, and we need to help people understand what your whole benefit package is worth. We've just started doing that at my organization. I've worked at other places. I used to work for United Airlines, and every year we got this nice glossy brochure that told us how much everything was worth. So you got a good feel for what your compensation was. We don't do a good job of explaining that, and we really don't do a good job when we're hiring people of telling them this is what your compensation package is worth. So maybe people are willing to take a smaller salary because,
exactly,
I'm going to pay less for health insurance, or I'm getting more PTO, or whatever. United Airlines, I'm getting flight benefits. So there are different things that you can offer that people might be willing to take a salary pay cut from what they're currently making, but we need to let them make that decision. You can't make that decision for people, and that's why we don't ask for salary information anymore, because we were making that decision for people.
Exactly. Well, Wendy, it's the time. Thank you very much for being here. It has been amazing.